Welcome to the podcast. I'm Mariya Heletiy, and today we are talking about peace. As the war against Ukraine continues, calls for peace are growing louder across Europe. But the real question is, what kind of peace are we actually talking about? A temporary ceasefire or a peace that can last? Because it is built on deterrence, justice, and resilience. In this episode, we'll explore what credible security guarantees look like, why past frameworks failed, and what Europe must do if it is want not just to end this war, but to prevent the next one. I'm very glad to welcome today's guest, Roman Yasmonytskyy, an international security expert with deep expertise in European security, deterrence, and the political dimensions of war and peace. Roman, it's great to have you with us.
Roman, when we talk about peace for Ukraine, what we do actually mean? A ceasefire, a signed agreement, or a security architecture that prevents the next war, not only in Ukraine, but in Europe as a whole. In short, what does a future peace in Ukraine look like? What does it require?
First of all, thank you, Mariya, for your invitation and having me today. Yeah, your question is very interesting in current setting because it's a complex answer is not possible. We need to think in several dimensions. First is ceasefire and security guarantees to start the negotiation process. After that, we need some formal contract and guarantees to put the negotiations results on paper and enforce them. And of course, follow up reconciliation and keeping peace in Ukraine with the help of all international partners and our allies.
Let's talk about peace frameworks. And I want to look at some frameworks of the past to guide our discussion. When we look at conflicts like the Balkans or Israel-Palestine, what patterns do we see that repeat across different regions and decades? What makes conflicts become frozen or protracted while others move slowly toward resolution? Within this broader context, what are the lessons from Minsk and that we need to consider as a broad framework for Ukraine is crafted and put in place?
This is an excellent question. I think a major prerequisite of peace negotiations and stable, sustainable peace is real force and ability of one party to strongly defeat another party, or when all parties of the conflict are not capable to continue with a stable path. So I would say in all these examples that you mentioned, one party or their allies conducted a strong force demonstration or strong attack, which made other parties forced to sit at the table of negotiations. It's the must to have really serious talks about peace.
Agree. But before we move further, I want to ground our conversation in Ukraine's own vision of peace. The Ukraine peace formula has often been presented as a list of points. But today, I'd like us to treat it as a starting framework, not a checklist. At its core, the peace formula reflects fundamental principles, territorial integrity and sovereignty, accountability for war crimes, credible security guarantees, not vague assurances, alongside energy, food, and nuclear security, and the return of deported civilians and prisoners of war. Which of these elements are truly non-negotiable for Ukrainians? And why? What happens if peace proposals ignore these core principles?
This very challenging list of framework discussion points, as you mentioned, because I'm pretty convinced that if there will be no solid ground for peace and solid prerequisites for keeping Ukraine's territorial and political sovereignty, the people of Ukraine won't accept any peace contracts or peace negotiations, because To be sustainable, it should include Ukrainians' will for independence and sovereignty. And if not honored, these peace talks won't be for a long time, unfortunately.
Agree. And one of the most difficult questions in any peace discussions is security. Ukraine has already lived through a model that was supposed to provide stability, neutrality backed with political assurance. It failed. So today I want to ask to look honestly at what could work. Are we talking about NATO membership, bilateral security guarantees, or some kind of hybrid model? And what does it mean for the European Union to act not only as a soft power project, but as a genuine security actor? What would be a credible deterrence model actually look like, which help end this war and also prevent Russia from launching to the next one?
This is very visionary and discussable question because current security models and current world order doesn't work, unfortunately. If several years before Russian invasion of Ukraine, we dreamt about joining NATO and having NATO guarantees, nowadays even current NATO members are not 100% sure if they will be secure in this current ever-changing context. So I would say Budapest Memorandum failed, Minsk treaties failed, NATO membership is not guarantee for peace. So I think it should be some hybrid model for Ukraine and also European partners to have strong Ukrainian army, very mobile, highly equipped, highly motivated with personnel and weapons, supported by European allies, and available to take any advancement of Russia, be it in territory of Ukraine or in case any actions would be held in the Baltics or Poland or any other place, some kind of a mobile European security and military forces based on Ukraine's capabilities and experience in Russian-Ukraine war, because currently Ukraine army is the most experienced in army operations, because active war is happening in Ukraine's territory, unfortunately. So NATO guarantees won't be the silver bullet, but rather some hybrid model of Ukraine military forces as the base and European allies and US and Canada and other G7 partners supporting and maintaining Ukraine's force to defeat any future potential risks coming from Russia.
And what's about accountability? Not as revenge, but as a prevention. What role can international mechanisms play, whether through a special tribunal, the International Criminal Court, or national courts? And what are the risks if aggression is normalized or quietly forgiven?
This is a philosophical question, tough to answer because we're stepping from security domain to some field of human nature and perception of what is fair and what is reasonable from the political standpoint. I think people in many wars, with pace of time, just want to come to their normal lives, and I think it's very important that at least some high-level politicians who bring these wars and these insecurities in Europe should be punished, because people need to see that evil is punished and is not just given away. But so many people died already, so many sufferings, so many families lost their loved ones and their the normal peaceful life. So I guess currently everybody is focused on getting sustainable peace, moving on and start peaceful and prosperous life. But again, I think high-level politicians who brought this war, who maintained, who supported, who financed, need to get some really serious punishment, as you mentioned, Mariya, in The Hague in criminal court and other instruments that hopefully the current system still has.
And I have the last question about Europe. What happens if Europe accepts a model of managed instability, where war is contained but not resolved? How does Ukraine's future shape Europe's broader security order? And why is supporting Ukraine not an act of charity, but a matter of the European self-interest?
You already given the answer in your question, actually, because as long as Russia or any other actors plan and pursue aggressive operations in Europe and other parts of the world, Europe cannot be felt safe and stable, because once war is contained in Ukraine, Russia can be mobilizing its resources to attack Baltics or other places. So basically, I believe European partners need to focus on demolishing all possible capabilities of Russia. I mean, economic, military, social, and support from other countries like China and Iran to stop Russia from further advancements and further aggression acts in Europe and other parts of the world. Only then, partially, Europe can say the conflict is resolved for the moment, because as we all know, war is a normal state of the world's history, and peace is just a short break between those wars. So let's see what happens.
To conclude, let me briefly summarize where this discussion brings us. Peace is not the same as a ceasefire. Peace that lasts requires security guarantees that deter aggression, accountability that prevents repetition, and societies resilient enough to withstand pressure, military, political, and informational. Ukraine's struggle has made this reality impossible to ignore. Ukraine's peace is not only about Ukraine. It's about the kind of Europe we want to live in. Thank you for listening, and thank you our guest for this important conversation. I'm Mariya Heletiy, and until next time, let's keep asking not just how war ends, but how peace is protected. This podcast was recorded within the scope of the program Vidnova Plus engagement, funded by the European Union and with the help of the Berlin School of Podcasting.